It started with a knock on my gate, not my front door, mind you, but my steel gate, the one I had welded onto the front of my lakefront ranch property. After the last time some HOA lunatics decided to inspect my land, this time, though it wasn't Karen herself, it wasn't one of her clipboard-carrying cronies with a stack of violation notices printed on HOA letterhead. No, this time, it was worse. They sent security, private, armed, unlicensed-looking and twitchy. 2 of them stood outside my gate like they were expecting to breach a compound. One had aviators on, pacing like a movie henchman. The other held a little iPad and tapped it like he was about to scan my license plate. The first thing I thought was, what the hell kind of HOA sends goons in tactical boots? The second thing I thought was, they picked the wrong damn property. See, I'm not your average lakefront retiree. I served 15 years as a Marine MP and another 10 with the Sheriff's Department before I moved out here to get some peace. This land, I bought it with blood, sweat, and nights I'll never get back. And if Karen, the HOA president with a god complex and 2 failed marriages, thought her little weekend militia was going to intimidate me, she had another thing coming. Now, the reason this even started, the HOA board who technically governed the subdivision next to mine, but not mine, got a new attorney. Some hotshot fresh out of law school who apparently convinced them they had environmental authority over the lake. That included my side of the shoreline. Mind you, my land was outside their jurisdiction. My deed was older than their community charter. I owned a strip of lakefront with a dock, a boathouse, and a gravel access road they claimed violated lake preservation standards. They'd sent me warning letters, which I promptly used as fire starter in my pit. But now they were escalating, and I knew why. There was a new development going up behind Karen's gated cul-de-sac. Turns out her property value was dropping because my ranch, my open land with the TVs, bonfires, and God forbid a fishing pier, didn't match the desired aesthetics of the luxury community. So she was trying to push me out, quietly at first. But now, it was direct confrontation. That morning when I stepped outside in my flannel shirt and boots with a mug of black coffee and saw those 2 self-important security guards glaring at my cameras, I didn't grab my gun, not yet. I grabbed my phone and hit record. "You're trespassing on private property," I said, walking slowly toward them. The one with the sunglasses raised a hand like he was stopping traffic. The iPad guy blinked at me, caught off guard. "Sir, we're here on behalf of the Lakeside Hills Homeowners Association," he began. "There's been an official complaint regarding unauthorized modifications to lakefront property in violation of laws that don't apply here." I cut in. "This is Oak Ridge land. My deed's recorded in the county office. I'm not under your jurisdiction. And unless you have a warrant or a badge, you need to turn around." Sunglasses guy puffed up like a rooster. "We're authorized to conduct an inspection. Your access road cuts across wetlands adjacent to nothing. That wetland is my drainage ditch." They didn't like that. The one in sunglasses reached down, not for a weapon but for the lock on my gate. Bad move. See, I'd welded that lock into a custom bracket after the last break-in. Touching it without permission was trespass. Tampering with it, that was felony mischief, and I knew exactly how to handle it. I didn't call the police. I opened the gate myself, and let's just say that was the last time either of them tried to step on my land uninvited, because 5 minutes later one of them was screaming on the ground, and the other, well, he wasn't walking away, either. As soon as I unlatched that gate and let it swing wide, the guy in aviators took a step forward like he thought I'd just surrendered. He looked past me, scanning the property like he was doing a site sweep for an operation. I could see it all over his face. He thought he had some kind of power here. That little HOA badge on his windbreaker must have felt like a sheriff's star in his mind. The other one stayed back, eyes glued to the tablet like it was a court order. I calmly stepped into the center of the drive, arms crossed. "Don't take another step," I warned, voice flat. "You're not welcome here." Aviator guy chuckled like I'd just told him a dad joke. "Sir, we're not here to argue. We're here to enforce compliance." He didn't know what that word meant. Compliance doesn't mean breaking into someone's property and threatening their rights. But here's where it got real. He took one more step, boot crunching gravel, and I could see he was heading toward my ATV trail, the one that cuts down behind the barn toward the lake. Now, that trail's narrow, sloped, and lined with split-rail fencing. It's not made for foot patrols, and it's definitely not meant for people unfamiliar with the terrain. I didn't have to lift a finger, because what happened next? Nature and karma took care of it. The second he rounded the corner to the left, he caught his boot under a knot of tree root that jutted through the gravel path like a tripwire. His leg twisted sideways, and with a crack like someone snapping a broom handle, he went down hard, flat on his side. Then he screamed, loud, raw, and guttural, the kind of pain that only comes from a fractured fibula or a shattered shin. His partner rushed to him, slipping slightly on the uneven path, trying to keep the tablet from falling, but it was too late. Jesus, man, you okay? Aviator guy rolled over, clutching his leg and moaning. I stepped forward calmly, hands in my jacket, didn't raise my voice, didn't touch anyone. This is why you don't trespass on private land you don't understand, I said. This isn't your HOA's cul-de-sac, this is real terrain, with consequences. The second guy pulled out a phone and started dialing 911. I stopped him. You call the police. You better let them know what you're calling from, I said, because they're going to ask whose land you're on and what your legal justification was for trespassing onto private property, interfering with infrastructure, and impersonating law enforcement. That got his attention. He didn't press call. He just stood there, eyes flicking back and forth like he was trying to calculate the odds of me pulling a gun. I didn't have to. Instead, I pulled out my phone and hit record again. I walked them through the entire situation. Time, location, who they were, what they claimed, what they'd done, and how they refused to leave when ordered. I panned the camera to show Aviator guy on the ground, clutching his leg and swearing. I filmed their truck, unmarked, no license plate on the front, just a Lakeside Hills HOA sticker crookedly slapped on the back window. Smile, I said. This is the last time your little neighborhood dictatorship tries something like this. Then I dialed 911 myself. The county sheriff knows me. I trained half the deputies working the area back when I ran field instruction when they pulled up 20 minutes later. Red lights flashing, 2 cruisers on the gravel road. I could already see the shift in attitude on the HOA goons' faces. One of the deputies walked up, recognized me immediately, and nodded. Frank, everything all right? It is now, I said. These 2 claimed they had authority from the HOA to conduct a search and inspection of my land. The deputy looked from me to the guys on the ground, then back at me. Your property. Mine, not under HOA jurisdiction. Bought it 12 years ago. All the paperwork's in the lockbox. Want to see it? He didn't. The injured man tried to interject, moaning something about wetland violations and ecological impact concerns. The deputy held up a hand like he was swatting away a fly. You're not a code inspector. You're not an officer. You're trespassing and you're lucky you didn't get shot. And just like that, the mood flipped. They went from smug little enforcers to 2 scared punks in polo shirts, who suddenly realized they warranted the law. The injured one ended up getting carted off in an ambulance. The other was issued a trespassing citation and was told, on body cam, never to step foot on my land again without a court order. The HOA president, oh, she wasn't even there, but her name came up plenty. And as I stood watching that ambulance disappear down the road, I had only one thought. Karen just made the worst mistake of her life, and I wasn't done with her, not by a long shot. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was shaken up or afraid, but because my mind wouldn't stop running. I'd seen enough in my years to know when people were acting on impulse, and when they were acting on orders. That HOA security team wasn't freelancing. Someone greenlit them, gave them access to satellite maps of the county, and even a script to rattle off about wetlands and zoning. This wasn't personal beef, it was organized overreach, and I was going to find out who was behind it. First thing in the morning, I made 2 calls. The first was to my buddy Tom. He's a land use attorney who handled everything from ranch disputes to environmental impact lawsuits across the state. The second was to Sandra at the county recorder's office because I needed paper, and I needed it fast. By 11:15 a.m., I was sitting in the county building, holding a manila folder that would flip the HOA's little crusade upside down. See, what Karen, and yet, her name really was Karen. What she failed to grasp was that I didn't just own the lakefront property. I owned 3 additional adjoining parcels they didn't even know about, including one their own HOA fence crossed into by nearly 6 feet. That's right, their fence, their HOA sidewalk, their little decorative community sign with the stone base and flowers, all on my land. Now I could have gone nuclear right away. Bulldozers, chainsaws, lawsuits. But nah, that's not how you win a war. You win it strategically. So I filed 2 formal notices that same day. A cease and desist order against Lakeside Hills HOA for unauthorized trespass and environmental interference. A server-based boundary correction complaint, alerting the zoning commission that HOA structures were encroaching on private land. with no permits on file. By the time I got home, I had an email waiting from Tom with 3 attached letters of demand, professionally worded, legally tight, and absolutely bulletproof. But the best part, he found something even better. Turns out the HOA had applied for a community environmental grant through the county last year. The same wetlands they accused me of damaging. They claimed in that application that the land was protected by them. Problem is, it was never theirs. Fraud. On paper, with signatures, you could almost hear the legal timer start ticking down the moment we hit send. A week later, I got a letter. Not an apology, a fine. Yep, the HOA doubled down, accusing me of unauthorized land modification and visual disruption of community standards. It was laughable, but it proved one thing. Karen wasn't scared. Not yet. So I decided to introduce her to fear. I printed a high-resolution aerial photo from the county archives clearly showing the fence crossing my property line. I marked it with red ink and attached it to an official ejectment notice drafted by Tom. Then I drove to the HOA office myself. Karen wasn't just the president, she worked there part-time, too. She was sitting behind the front desk when I walked in, tapping away at a pink iPad and sipping something from a bedazzled tumbler. "You can't just walk in here," she started, not even looking up. Good, because I didn't come to ask permission. That made her glance up. I dropped the file on the counter. .com/clean, unbothered. "You're going to want to read that carefully," I said. She scoffed, flipped through a few pages, then froze. This is your property." I nodded. "Always has been. And now you have 7 days to remove every fence post, brick, and flower pot. Or I do it for you and bill the HOA for every hour my crew works." For the first time, she didn't have anything smart to say. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her tumbler. I left before she could gather her thoughts. I didn't need to stand there and watch her squirm, because this was never about drama. It was about consequences, and the HOA was about to choke on theirs. That weekend, something hilarious happened. 2 guys in polo shirts showed up with a tape measure and a GoPro, tiptoeing around like they were defusing a bomb. They measured the sidewalk, the fence, the sign, every inch. Then a 3rd guy, some kind of property manager, showed up in a tie, walking around looking sick to his stomach, because by now, they knew, they'd built part of their community on the wrong land, and I had the legal right to tear it down. The HOA board held an emergency meeting that Sunday. You know how I know? Because Tom forwarded me a copy of the meeting minutes. And let me tell you, it was Karen who was under fire now, not me. It started with an email, a cowardly one. The HOA, likely advised by some second-rate legal intern, responded to our formal demands with one of the most passive-aggressive non-apology letters I'd ever read. They claimed to be reviewing their Development S original plats and consulting their legal partners regarding property boundaries. Then they had the nerve to say, "At this time, we do not recognize the alleged ownership of the disputed parcel." Oh, you don't recognize it? Funny. The county recorder does. The zoning commission does. The tax office certainly does ASISly, since they've been billing me for it for 6 straight years. You know who else recognized it? The judge who approved my temporary injunction that very morning. Yep. While the HOA played bureaucratic chicken, I filed a request with the local district court for an emergency injunction to preserve my rights to the property, including the immediate removal of encroachments by the HOA pending full civil review. The judge approved it in 18 minutes. That gave me full authority to enforce the boundary line, so I called in a favor. My cousin Luke owns a heavy equipment rental company, and my friend Joel runs a demolition and landscaping crew who R&T just fast. They recycle. At 6:15 a.m. the next morning, the quiet, orderly calm of Lakeside Hills HOA was shattered by the unmistakable rumble of a Caterpillar D5K bulldozer crawling down the private road like it had a score to settle. I was in the cab, driving it myself. Right behind me, 3 work trucks, 2 flatbeds, and a crew of 6 hard hats, clipboards, and high-visibility vests. Legal orders laminated and clipped to their belts. At exactly 6:59 a.m., I stood in front of their Welcome to Lakeside Hills sign, now fully inside the boundaries of my property, with Joel standing beside me holding the judge's stamped order. I gave the nod. By 7:04 a.m. the flower bed had been leveled, the decorative stone border, gone, uprooted, loaded, and strapped to the back of the flatbed like a trophy kill. Karen came sprinting out of her house in a lavender bathrobe, phone in one hand, her mouth already in full shriek. "What the hell do you think you're doing? This is private property," I cut in, holding up the court order. "Exactly mine." She went red in the face. You can't just tear down the sign. That's part of the HOAS. Not anymore. You've got 28 minutes before we take out the sidewalk. The sound that came out of her mouth was part shriek, part gasp, and part choking sob. She bolted back inside and slammed the door so hard a gutter shook loose. We didn't stop. By 7:42 a.m., the entire sidewalk extension built across my property had been jackhammered to pieces. Joel's guys didn't just remove it, they loaded every single brick, concrete chunk, and rebar rod into a dump trailer for delivery, to where, the HOA clubhouse parking lot, neatly stacked, with a copy of the court order duct taped to the pile. But I saved the best for last. Remember that smug little HOA security building they'd set up a year ago? The one built partly over the line? That thing was half shed, half joe-canned, 100% illegally on my land, so I did what any reasonable man would do. I called a local auction company. They brought a flatbed and a crane, and right in front of Karen, 5 other board members, and at least a dozen gawking residents, I auctioned it off on the spot, as is, whereas, trespassing included. The buyer, some bearded guy in a Harley-Davidson t-shirt, who ran a roadside BBQ stand and said he needed a tool shed. He got it for $275. We hoisted it, strapped it down, and hauled it out like we were stealing a shipping container. Karen was losing her mind by this point, shouting, crying, trying to get the cops on the phone. But the best part, they never came, because the sheriff's office, they'd already seen the paperwork. They had no interest in stopping a property owner from enforcing a lawful injunction. Karen just stood there, robe blowing in the wind, mouth open, disbelief painted all over her face. She never imagined someone would actually fight back. Not like this. Not with the law, the evidence, and a bulldozer leading the charge. By 9:15 a.m. the land was clear. Every sign, every encroachment, every square inch of their community decor was stripped, flattened, and cleared. I stood there on my own land, now fully mine in sight as well as law, sipping a gas station coffee and watching the last dump trailer roll out. Joel gave me a fist bump. "They're gonna have nightmares about you, man." I nodded. Let them, but I wasn't done yet, because the final revenge wasn't the demolition, it was what I did next. I didn't just restore the land, I rezoned it, and what I planned to build would turn their tidy suburban fairy tale into a daily reminder of the line they crossed. 3 weeks after the demolition, I filed for rezoning, not just for residential use, commercial mixed use. Now, you might wonder what business could I possibly want to put in the middle of nowhere, next to a quiet HOA where people sip coffee on porches and argue about mulch. The answer, a dog park. Not just any dog park, public access lakeside dog park, complete with a splash zone, bark-friendly obstacle course, a food truck loop, and weekend events for pet owners. Oh, and the clincher. It would back directly onto the HOA's private walking trail which they built, without permits, along the property's edge, assuming no one would ever care. Now, it would sit exactly 6 feet from the back fence of Karen's home. But it wasn't just about annoying them. I wasn't building this out of spite net entirely. Truth is, I'd always wanted to open something local and fun after retiring from the logistics industry, a family-friendly business that gave people and pets a place to breathe, laugh, and not worry about nonsense like whether your patio furniture was beige enough for a neighborhood covenant. The cherry on top, I partnered with a non-profit rescue they'd host adoption weekends at the site, turning it into a community magnet. That meant I qualified for federal small business grants, county park support, and even infrastructure incentives. In short, the HOA couldn't stop me. In fact, once rezoning was approved and I posted the 10-foot banner that read, "Future site of Lucky Paws, Lakefront Park," Karen had the gall to beg for a meeting, and yes, I mean beg. She showed up at my front gate with a clipboard and a weirdly forced smile, pretending like we were neighbors who had just had a little misunderstanding. She even brought muffins. I let her stew at the gate speaker for 5 solid minutes, while I watched from the window, coffee in hand. Then I clicked the speaker and said, "Sorry Karen, no outside food allowed on the premises." Click. She tried everything after that. Petitions, legal threats, even a desperate email to the county saying the dog park would cause noise pollution and mental stress for HOA residents. Didn't matter. Everything was legal. Public permitted. Even the LED sign I installed at the park's entrance facing directly toward her street that now played cheerful slogans like, "Barks over bureaucracy. Free parking, nitrogen monoxide, HOA, permission needed." Yeah, I had fun with it. But the final showdown came at the HOA's annual general meeting. A neighbor tipped me off that the board was calling a vote to sue me. Sue me for devaluing community aesthetics, whatever that meant. So I showed up, legally, as a guest. I had every right since technically my property was now adjacent, and I'd been invited by one of the homeowners who supported the park. You could feel the tension shift the moment I walked in. Some folks nodded respectfully, others avoided eye contact. Karen, she looked like she'd just swallowed a beehive. I stood at the back, arms folded, not saying a word as the board tried to rally support. But here's what they didn't expect. The community liked the dog park. Turns out, a lot of the HOA members were dog lovers. Many of them had already visited Lucky Paws and brought their kids. Some even told me it was the best thing that had happened to the area in years. One man stood up and said, "Maybe if we hadn't sent security goons onto someone else's land, we wouldn't be in this mess." And that was it. The room turned. In one of the most glorious moments of suburban poetic justice I've ever seen, 4 out of the 6 board members voted against the lawsuit and 2 even motioned for Karen to resign. She went pale, muttered something about needing time to reflect, then stormed out. I watched her go, not with hate, not even smugness, just satisfaction, because karma doesn't always wear boots and carry a shovel. Sometimes it shows up as a 70-pound golden retriever doing zoomies in a splash zone built on reclaimed HOA land. The next weekend, we held Lucky Paws' official grand opening. Over 120 people came. Food trucks lined the curb, kids chased puppies around the lakeside grass. And I stood beside my wife, grinning like a man who had just reclaimed more than just a plot of land. I'd reclaimed freedom, from control, from lies, from bureaucratic bullies in beige windbreakers. A journalist from the local newspaper asked me for a quote. I thought about it for a second and said, "When someone tries to walk all over you, sometimes the best move is to bulldoze the sidewalk."